Okay, at 6:30, we'll call the meeting to order. And this is a combined committee of the whole meeting, administration and finance and public works, environmental services and facilities. And it is the Monday, May 20th, 2022 meeting. Okay, I'm seeking a approval of the agenda as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hunter, and do I have a seconder? Mr. Packwood, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Now, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Hearing none, thank you all. Business arising from the previous committee meetings of the whole, if any, and that would be the administration for May the 8th and public works for May the 16th. And they are respectively pages 1 to 8 for admin and finance and pages 9 to 14 for public works. Any business arising? Hearing none, thank you. We'll move on. We have no delegations or presentations tonight. We have no discussion items tonight. So that brings us to item 7, which is the action information. And the first one on the list is 7A, which is the update to the planning fees bylaw. And it's on pages 15 to 20. And there is a recommendation with this as well. And I believe the CAO would like to highlight something along here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Might be easiest maybe if those that have the digital package, if they want to turn to page 19, or if you have the paper copy, page 17, which is the bylaw, maybe we can just work through some of those recommended amendments. So I guess first item is 2B, which is the application to amend zoning bylaw. And we're looking to increase the application fee to bring it in line with the, or at least closer in line with the average of the last three years, which is about $3,301. So we're looking at least bumping that up from $2,000 to $2,500. Under item 2F, which is site plan approval application. And we're looking at 2F and 2G to increase that by $250 each. And that additional increase would cover some of that legal costs to register those agreements on title. Under section 2I, this would be a new application fee with respect to development agreements, which typically arise, or we've seen them arise out of a condition of severance. And this would cover with respect to the admin fee and registering that document on title. So sort of a 500 our registration for on title is averaging about $450 to $500 an item. And then finally in section 2, which is J, the telecommunications tower land use review, and that would be a new application fee. As of right now, we don't have one, and that would cover the admin time to review the letter of understanding with respect to those applications. Let's say the next, just under section 3, you'll notice in other parts of the document that we've crossed out any reference to OMB or the Ontario Municipal Board or the LPAT, Land Planning Advisory Tribunal, and replace that with the latest acronym, which is the Ontario Land Tribunal. So we've updated those particular items. So under clause 4, we have added just a note that any fees arising out of section 2 with respect to legal fees associated with processing that application, they would be charged in addition to. And this is just sort of a coverall. Wherever possible, we've tried to incorporate that into the application fee, so the individual that's applying sort of has a good idea of what that cost is going to be up front. It's just if something that arises that we're not aware of through the process, that we may need additional legal advice. And then I would say on the last item is clause 8, which just looks to remove the sentence that refers that consents are not subject to refund or additional invoicing. And that's just for circumstances where we may require some additional planning advice or legal advice, that those costs are put back to the applicant. That's basically the highlight of the proposed changes for consideration.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Grant. Questions or concerns for Mr. Grant? Councilor Billabong, go ahead.
Thank you, to the chair, to the CEO. Where does this put us in line to our neighbor other townships? In other words, this application for amendment zoning bylaw 2500, we're saying it costs us 31. We got about 3100 in costs after roughly for an application to amend the zoning bylaw.
So on average, over the last 3 years, to fully complete a zoning bylaw amendment, it's been roughly about $3,000 to $3,100. Now the applicant's going to get that bill back, but the feeling is that if we can get that original application fee up closer to it, then it's not really a surprise when they get that additional cost at the end. So they're knowing that in advance.
And the development agreement, $1,000, do the chair, the CEO. What's that actually covering?
So that would cover a $500 min fee, which is typically what all the applications cover. And then basically the $500 legal to register that on title.
The chair again. Okay, thank you. So are we in tune with our township neighbors? Yes, no?
I would say we're reasonably in tune, but in essence, really what we're trying to do is cover our costs.
Right.
We're not making any profit. We're just covering the cost to process those applications.
One more. Thank you. I'd like to see the telecommunication tower line use review go up to 1,000. And then maybe we can do away with some of these. We went through about 4 or 5 since I've been on council, maybe more, and I haven't seen one tower go up yet. But yet we have to go through it, and you and the staff has to go through it. So if anything, I would like to see that go from 500 to 1,000. Besides that, this is what we need to. I just want to try to make it easier for the builders to build, not harder. That's all I'm asking. Easier to build, not harder.
Anything else, Councilor?
That's
Okay, point taken. Mr. CAO, in regards to the change to the tower structure, do you have any comment on that?
Through the chair, we selected 500 just because that's our standard admin fee. Without the requirement to register on title or anything else with those costs, it was at this time there's just not enough supporting documentation to look at that increase.
But of course, if you found that applications come through, if it's costing us more more than the $500 we would certainly look at an increase on that.
Through the chair, we would look to come back to actually, once we have a little bit more of a track record with respect to that, to ensure that we're covering those costs.
Thank you. Is that satisfactory to you, Councillor?
No, I'd like to make a motion that we increase it from 500 to 1,000.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that?
It's sticking with my motion.
Not yet. Not yet. We can still talk about it. Through the chair, the CEO. Everything else is based on the attempt to get to cost recovery. I think the suggestion is going beyond cost recovery. Is that like as a source of revenue? Is that be against the norm? I mean, it seems to be in other places there, like all the other items.
So through the chair, typically, I'll use an example. Site plan approval. Let's indicate site plan approval application major development. If all of our costs ended up being $1,500, then we would be refunding the applicant back $250. And that's pretty standard for any of these applications, because what we're only doing is trying to cover our costs. So it would be outside the norm with the telecommunications tower. Because unless we're utilizing that 500 as a base amount, it's unlikely that we're going to go over that 500. So if we're going to charge 1,000, and what we end up doing is returning $500 to that app.
Right, or if the hours spent added up to 1,000, we would send them a bill for the other 500.
Yes, for instance, yes, if the time spent added up to 750, then we would bill them the extra 250, or if it was 1,000, then it would be 1,000.
Yeah, okay, so
Councillor Dillabaugh, you want it back in?
Just that I don't have a problem with that as long as if it's time consuming and if it's going to run over. I have a question. Do the CEO or to the chair of the CEO, telecommunication tower applications, what is our actual cost in house, like by the time we look at it, so on? Any idea roughly? 200, 300, 400? Just I'm not.
Yeah, no. Through the chair, if you recall, in the last year that we moved away from the site plan control approval for those towers, and moving forward, we'll be looking for that letter of understanding. So I would say that $500 will cover that time, based on the last couple that we've completed.
Thank you. I'm happy. I'll remove my motion.
Thank you. Councillor Hunter?
I just want to continue on what Councillor Dillabaugh started with, this development agreement charge. This is a new charge we've got in this plan. Where is this coming from that all of a sudden we've got a development agreement charge?
So through the chair, so we've had a couple of cases where a severance has taken place, and part of the environmental impact assessment has sort of provided some additional conditions and restraints with respect to what can be developed on that lot. And what we have done is entered into a development agreement with that owner and have that registered on title, so it stays with the property moving forward. As it's been in the past couple, all of that has sort of been absorbed by the general ratepayer and not back to the to that specific owner in that circumstance, because we didn't have a fee for that. So
this fee isn't gonna be, Chair and CEO, this fee is only gonna be charged once assessment comes back, something else has to be registered on it.
yes, it's mainly if there's special terms and conditions specific to that approval that would require a development agreement. And that development agreement would come through committee and council. So I think Robinson within the last year was one of those items where I think it was either significant woodland that they were limited on how far they could develop, and there were a couple other conditions with respect to that. So we looked at it from that perspective of once that report's in and the severance is complete, how is that tracked in the future, or how is that maintained? And the easiest mechanism is through that sort of an agreement that's registered on title, so that everyone's aware of the conditions moving forward.
Just Same with that, as long as it's something that comes up after, I can agree with it. If it's something that everybody that applies for a severance or something's gonna have to pay another $1,000 up front. I know we're gonna be give the chair to chairman of the rubber committee here. We're gonna be getting contacted from South Nation on the process Leeds and Gravel does for severance application over environmental impact studies. They've been working for about a year. We started not done that for 1 year. Got it kind of pretty near to an agreement, but this isn't something we just automatically ask for. That it's going to be a comment from South Nation whether they actually need an environmental impact study, or whether it can just be a condition that South Nation said, well, you got to stay so far away from a ditch or something. So we discussed it at the board there, and they all think these environmental impact studies have gone overboard here. Concept here a bit, because I did apply for a severance, but the first word that I got from Leeds and Gravel when I handed him, I said, have you already did your development environmental impact study? This is ridiculous that they're asking for this on every lot in Leeds and Gravel, and their comment was, well, there's no good lots left. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense, because there's lots of good lots left through different areas that people own. They wouldn't have never severed to anybody else, but because a child wants to build a lot on their place, they'll sever the lot to sell it to a relative or something, but they're not. I think kind of gone off board here in Leeds and Gravel, which automatically asking for all these studies before they actually pendulate the province with us. A lot of things are whitewashing everybody with the same brush. So but we will be getting a comment within the next 2 weeks. Allison will be sending a proposition through the Leeds and Gravel and to each one of the townships about how they're dealing with it in the southern townships. They're taking over our sewer program. They want to be more in tune with all dealing with the same process all the way through. So
Okay, if I'm hearing no other concerns or questions, we do have a recommendation, and the recommendation reads that committee recommends to council that a new tariff of planning fees bylaw be adopted as attached. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor and Mr. Packwood as second. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. That moves us on to 7B, which is the expansion of OMER's pension to part-time employees on pages 21 to 22. It's an information item. There's no recommendation here. And Mr. Grant, would you highlight the briefing note for us, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I'm going to try to stay away from some of those acronyms as I provide this, but yes, basically, OMERS is extending the primary pension plan eligibility to non-full-time employees starting on January 1st, 2023. Contribution rates would be the same for full-time and non-full-time, and would be based on the employee's normal retirement age. The employer must provide all non-full-time employees with notice and explanation regarding the plan at least 60 days prior to January 1st. Plan's optional for the employee, so at this particular stage, we don't know how many may opt in or opt out of the plan. So, and within the information item, we've sort of provided a best or sort of a worst case scenario for potential impact to 2023 budget for the township. Alone may be around 15,000 if everybody opts in. The library may see $7,000 addition, so it may be one of those items where they look to have their annual increased by 7,000 to cover that. It's just more or less a heads up of what will be coming in the fall.
And I believe the United Counties have processed those as well. Question, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just a question through you to the CAO. So if I understand this correctly, I'm just trying to get it through this head that how this works for, like, say, a swimming instructor. They now have the option to join the pension. So they pay into it for 2 months of working at the pool, and then they're done with us. Let's say they don't come back the next year. What?
So, yeah, so through the chair, yes, it would be during that time, they would be contributing and the employer would be matching.
Right.
After that 2 months, there certainly is nothing to say that from my understanding, that the employee can't continue to contribute their portion. We have no obligation as the employer to contribute ours while they're not working.
So continue. So then, I mean, I'm assuming, again, and this might be to you or to you, that in the end of August, a summer student would get an ROE, wouldn't they? Will they not get a record of employment to say that they were no longer employees with us?
I would believe so.
Rehire them again at the start of the next year? Like, so they're no longer employees. They
Students
wouldn't.
that don't, sorry, through the chair to, students that don't move from our parks and pools into the arenas are given ROEs.
Right. So then when we give an ROE to a student who, let's just say it's their last year, they're done with us, okay, and they're no longer employees with us. So what happens to the money that they've put into the pension? That's all that I'm wondering. Like, if we have a student who comes, works 2 months, they pay into they join, they think it's a great idea, we match their money, we give them their ROE in September, they're not coming back, where's the money? Like, do we write them a check for what went into the owner's pension? Does it?
It stays in the owner pension until they're 65 and they'll get. Yes, so.
That's all.
Yeah, no, I think for this, for summer students, it's a little more difficult unless there's somebody that's like interested in proceeding with a municipal career. So I'll use myself as an example. There's potentially like 6 summers where I would have worked as a summer student, that if that was eligible, that would have certainly helped.
Would started your planning.
Would have started. But, fairness, at that particular time,
But
a municipal career wasn't first and foremost on my mind.
so I think the only thing for me, I get all of that. It's just that when when they sever ties with us, when the ROE's been issued, they wait until it's not an early payout or anything like that. They don't get that in September when the ROE's been issued. Doesn't become taxable income. They can't, they don't access it till it's 65.
Retirement, but yeah. So
Councilor Dillabaugh, you wanted in?
Thank you, through the chair to the CEO. So if he or she is done in August, she doesn't return the following year, can they continue to pay in that themselves though, up to their 50?
from my limited understanding at this
but we don't
particular
pay.
time, the employee would be able to contribute. The employer ourselves, we would not have any obligation.
But that would build their pension up, is that right?
Good.
Good.
Those six, okay.
But you know, I do have to follow up on that. This is relatively new and we just wanted to get that
That's fair enough.
information out. So,
Now-
but I anticipate that you're probably looking at
6%
more of our,
we match it.
not quite full-time employees, but our regular part-time employees, where it may be something that they may want to look at more so than summer student.
Now, just for the committee's information, this is not new. This was done back about 2004, 2005, where owners wanted to open up to the elected officials. And the council of the day, which I was on, decided, no, we wouldn't. The elected officials would not take part. And one of the situations at that time, I do believe, now it may have changed, I do believe that if we had accepted, we could have paid into it after we were not an elected official. However, that may have changed, so it would be up to the CAO staff to just clarify that, I think. Now, Councillor Hunter, you wanted in?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I think the CEO was right what they're aiming at. That's why we have to plow the sidewalks in the wintertime, 24 hours. And I think their owners aiming at a lot of townships that are bigger than us, that maybe have 25 or 30 of these guys and work 24 hours a week to keep them out of the union. They do a lot of them in pools and rec areas. I know Ottawa has quite a few of them back there that just work their full-time lifeguards and stuff, but they only work 24 hours a week in a pool, and then the rest of the time there's some other job they work at. But I think the main thing is, when this is offered, that our staff makes it very clear that it doesn't. When we get a pension, we've got to double whatever we put into it. I think this needs to be really explained to our younger part-time workers. So, as you said, if it's something that they plan on carrying through into the recreation career or something, yeah, it's probably a good idea for them if they're a student working 20 hours or 24 hours a week for us to start paying into it, if that's what they're going through school for and intend to be in that position. I think that's a good idea, but I think it just needs to be well explained to them. It's not just something like some programs you pay into and you're done, you get paid at the end. So the only thing I'd be worried that maybe somebody say, oh yeah, we'll sign up for that, and then we get 30 years later.
Deputy Mayor, you wanted back in?
Yeah, just for my own clarity, is there, I mean, we've got this information, but is there stuff that's more specific so that we understand exactly? I mean, guessing it's based on a percentage of, it's all guesswork, it's not there, but I'm guessing that it's like minimum of 6% of what they make, up to a maximum of 12, and we match that 6 to 12% or something like that of income. But is there, like, would I be able to read that agreement somewhere?
So through
That'll answer all these questions.
No, certainly fair enough. One of the items is that we want to get this information early, But I know that the treasurer is working on a few more details to have back.
Follow up then.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? As I say, this was just an information item only. So if there's none else, I'm going to move on. And that brings us to 7C, which is the revised 2022 budget estimates. They are on pages 23 to 28. And there is a recommendation with that as well. And Mr. Grant, would you like to field any highlights on this before I call the recommendation?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Maybe once again, those that have the digital package, they could turn to page 30. And those that have the paper copy, maybe 28. Am I right? That's 2 for 2. That's the best that I'm going to be able to do for the rest of the evening. So with respect to Schedule A, operating budget section, everything is identical. Capital budget near the bottom of the page. Under Public Works, the revenue increase of $424,275 to bring that number up to $1,042,253. Does everybody see that particular number? Okay. So right below that on the revenue side, under stormwater management, that is increased by $470,432 to bring that total to $2,513,805. So that total revenue increase combined is $894,707. So keep that number in mind because it will repeat throughout the next 2 items. So if we go over to the expense column, under Public Works, capital expenses, that's increased by $464,930 to $1,252,105. And the storm capital expense increased by $429,777 to $2,591,331. So those 2 expenses work to $800,000 and $94,707. So basically, that amount is the award of the full scope of the Spencer Hill and Johnstown projects. So we're updating the budget estimates to reflect the updated award because of that value is material in nature. That is the only 2 changes with respect to those 2 numbers under revenue and 2 numbers under expenses. All the rest of the budget estimates remain the same.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Questions, concerns regarding the briefing note? Mr. Packwood, did you want in or was it? No, okay,
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Through you to the CEO. So we're increasing the revenue line by those totals. So where did that is a combination of last year's surplus and money from reserves?
No, so if we look at page 23 on the paper copy or 25 on the electronic copy, basically that number is the difference between the original budget cost of $2,641,751 versus the actual cost and award for that total project of $3,536,457.53.
And that, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
that 890 will come as a result of an application for that construction loan plan?
The
That's the source for
the revenue, it would be anticipated that it would be through an application of the construction or some type of borrowing to obtain that revenue.
So if I may again, so then the original numbers minus the 894,707, the original numbers would have already included the transfers from the reserves and the surplus from last year. This is only the difference between those two numbers, and we expect it to come from the construction loan. That's the source, right?
That was the direction was for the treasurer to apply for.
Correct. No increase in taxation comes from, I know it says that in there, I just want to correct it, that's all.
There is no,
Yeah.
there is no increase from taxation.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, hearing none, the recommendation is that committee recommends council approve the revised 2022 budget estimates and direct staff to draft an amendment to the government estimates bylaw 2022-22. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hunter, Councillor Dillabaugh seconding. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Okay, now moving on to 7D, which is the update to the 2022 PSAB addendum on pages 29 and 30. And there also is a recommendation with this as well. And it's a fairly small briefing note, but Mr. CAO, would you like to highlight anything on this for us?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Again, if we turn to page 32 of the digital copy or page 30 of the paper copy. So the main change under the 2022 budget summary is the township page, which or the township line item, which you'll notice is it's been increased by $894,707 on the revenue and expense side. If we go down the page to the PSAB adjustments under the less acquisitions of capital assets, that number under budget expenses has increased that same value of the $894,707. And that's just carrying the rest, the rest forward through that adjustment.
And Deputy Mayor, can you go ahead?
Sorry, I should have sent this through earlier in an email. My apologies. So okay, so when we discussed the tender before, the suggestion was to we hold out the contract administration portion of this 3.5, or is this including the contract administration? Remember we had that discussion about what the 5% was going to be the total of? Are we going to end up coming back and doing this another time to amend this number as well? Or is it going to include the contracting?
The $894,707 is.
It includes the
it
contract.
includes-
Okay.
It includes
Thanks.
everything in that recommendation.
Sorry.
You're good.
No,
Any other questions or concerns here? Hearing none, and the recommendation is that committee recommends that council adopt the updated 2022 PSAB budget addendum report, which meets the requirements of Ontario Regulation 284-09. Could I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor, seconder. And I'll take Mr. Bush this time. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on, which is 7E, which is the Integrity Commissioner Bylaw Update, which is on page 31 to 37. A recommendation with this as well. You've had a chance to read the briefing note. However, I will call on Clerk Rebecca Williams to highlight this if there's anything needing highlighting.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a brief description. So we did a short integrity commissioner investigation in late fall of 21, which resulted in my updating the code of conduct to incorporate both council members and committee members of council. That was reviewed and updated, ran by council as well as our integrity commissioner. That was completed in March of 2022. Following that fulsome review, it's best practice to follow up with the integrity commissioner's bylaw. We've now done that. I've corresponded with our integrity commissioner to run through best practices, what he recommends, what he doesn't recommend. So this new bylaw incorporates more sections of the Municipal Act, which our previous 2015 bylaw did not. It just solely addressed the code of conduct and the code of conduct alone for council. Our new policy proposed incorporates code of conduct for council as well as committee members, addresses Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Now under the legislation as well as this bylaw, it officially permits council and committee and staff members, etc., to seek advice and information and determine their obligations under the integrity commissioner. Before, we were just relying on the act itself. Now everything's clear cut, as well as it incorporates designating our integrity commissioner as the meeting investigator under the Municipal Act. It incorporates all of that, as well as it cleans it up before old bylaw from 2015. Just the general outlines of how investigations are to take place. That's a bit of an older practice model. It's usually incorporated how we do it now in our new code of conduct bylaw, where the informal and formal complaint system is outlined clearly there. And the integrity commissioner bylaw just outlines what the integrity commissioner is under the act and their obligations. It just kind of cleans everything up for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams. Before I ask for a mover and seconder for the recommendation, any concerns, questions regarding the briefing note?
Just one.
Go ahead.
If I may, through you to the clerk. In this bylaw, would it, so when this is the appointment of how it goes, whatever, when we get to the results of an integrity investigation, I don't see anywhere in here that it covers the results of it or the publishing of it on our website.
So through the chair, that's all incorporated, as I mentioned, for the informal investigation, formal investigation, complaint. In our code of conduct, we've outlined public disclosure and recommendations and reports. In sections, let me just see here, 3.3, as well as 5.1, it also indicates that the integrity commissioner may file reports with the council. I do may instead of shall, because in certain years we do not have actual any investigations.
Mm-hmm.
So under the code of conduct, if we do have an investigation, they will report to us.
Just follow up.
Go ahead.
So when we had that investigation and we discussed it afterwards, we I believe, so I think what you're telling me is that in our code of conduct, the results of of an integrity commissioner will be published to the website, right?
Through your chair, that's correct.
Oh,
It's
cool.
under the municipal act
Yeah,
now.
I guess.
It's clearly cut as well as in our code of conduct and responsibilities under the integrity commission bylaw.
That's why it's not. Good, thanks.
Any other questions regarding the briefing note? Okay, hearing none, the recommendation is the committee recommends the council repeal and replace the current integrity commissioner bylaw 2015-33 with the updated bylaw as attached. Could I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor and a seconder. Mr. Packwood, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried as well. Thank you. Moving along, that brings us to 7F, which is a disconnect from work policy. And I also understand the counties have approved and sent this through as well. And this is from the province. And it's on pages 38 to 43 with a recommendation. Mr. Shaw, would you like to highlight the briefing note for us, please?
Mr. Chair, maybe best if I look to highlight the disconnect from work policy.
Very good. I, for some reason, had Mr. Shaw's name.
That's it. That's all right, Mr. Chair. From our agenda review, this one was a last minute addition, and we adjusted the order. So
Yes.
no worries in that regard. Correct. Bill 27, Working for Workers Act 2021. Made some amendments to various statutes, and one of it was to the Employment Standards Act, which requires a written policy on disconnecting from work for any employer that employs more than 25 employees. It applies to all employees, and I would summarize the purpose as better defining work-life balance and improving understanding of expectations and obligations between employee and employer. Is the Coles Notes version. I'm sure that that committee may have some questions with respect to the draft policy, and I'll do my best to answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. So I'll open it up for questions and concerns. I'll start at Councilor Billabong.
Thank you, the chair to the CEO. So I'm not being smart, but I do a lot of emails at 3, 4 in the morning. And would that affect me if I send an email to our clerk about a bylaw issue? Am I violating our code of conduct? Or, as you know, I've emailed you too.
I think it's just up to the clerk whether she would respond to it at that time or not.
No,
She's
I-
with,
no,
she,
no.
she would now be within her rights not to.
But is that what it's saying? Like I shouldn't be weekends, that kind of stuff?
So through that, yeah, so through the chair, certainly the preference would be that you're not emailing at 3 a.m. in the morning. You're certainly, there's certainly no expectation or obligation for a response. One of the items that I do find is, and I can only speak for myself in that regard. I keep my phone right beside the bed in the event that there is some type of urgent, important matter or an emergency that needs to be attended to. So I do not go to the extent of detailing out that emails are silent or anything else like that. So the preference is if it could wait till 7 a.m. During weekday, that would be the preference, but
Good to know. We won't get another one from me again.
in that particular instance, if if you were expecting a response at 3 AM, we.
No. Oh,
But knowing that that's certainly not the case, I don't think in the overall spectrum that we have a great deal of issues that would result necessarily in the implementation of a policy, but the requirement is that we have that policy, and we try our certainly attempt our best to keep those emails within a reasonable time.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so two points to this, because I certainly read through this and I struggled with it as a full-time employed small business owner, that I'm only allowed to contact staff during regular work hours. So then I would be taking away from my actual full-time job to do municipal business, which constitutes an honorarium, not actually a career. So I struggle with that as someone who believes that this is a commitment to my community, that I can't, if I'm reading my package correctly, which I don't get until 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, that I can't send them an email regarding anything on that until 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on Monday morning to get a response, because it's outside of work hours. So I understand that we need to put a policy in place. I understand that it's a requirement, but if I'm expected to if I'm obliged to follow the rules of that, it puts anyone that holds a regular job at a very difficult, it puts them in a very difficult position. I don't expect an answer, but I read my package when I get it, and I'm certainly spending, like on a Saturday, I would be coaching soccer. I'm doing all kinds of different stuff. I may not get to my package until midnight on Saturday. If I have questions, I usually email them, or I'll even send, unfortunately I do bother you occasionally, I'll send you a picture or a text, but I struggle with, if I read this right and it is a policy in place, I'd be breaking the policy, and really don't want to break the policies. I believe that, when I use the word integrity, and that I can't pick and choose which ones I break. So I just struggle. I understand we need to have a disconnect from work policy. I get it, but I'm not sure how it applies to us that way. I mean, I read that, yeah, you can put an email timer on your email so that, I can type it at midnight, but it doesn't send the email until Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Fine. Somebody's gonna have to show me how to do it, but I struggle with how this relates back to us.
So through the chair, I guess first item is that typically any inquiries of council go through the CAO. And if you're sending an email at 9 AM on Saturday on an item, that doesn't need to be dealt with until Monday morning. It's just the clear understanding that there is no obligation for me to be checking my email like several times on Saturday to see if there might be a situation that arises that needs to be dealt with, like on a timely manner. It would be simply, I would expect that if it's a urgent matter, that my phone would be ringing. Right? If you send an email, but you would be phoning me to indicate that this is a circumstance that we need some type of action on. But with respect to sending a weekend email, if that's done, I don't see that as breaking the intent of this policy. I see if it would be breaking it if the expectation is that I'm monitoring that email and I haven't responded in like X amount of hours, and there's some type of repercussion for me failing to do my duty. not so much in the sense of that there's an email waiting for me on Monday morning, or if I check my email on a Saturday evening and say, oh, I can respond to that right now, I respond to it.
I hear you, but you know, in reading, it's, you know, section 10 under communications, A and B. I mean, I as somebody who stands behind a chair all day during work hours, it's, I mean, we've done it, we've talked lots, but I mean, it's difficult to do them. Like, I get it. When I read those words, it says I can't do it, not that it's difficult.
So if you, through the chair, do you want to point to the exact?
Well, A and B in section 10.
Okay.
So it says that employees may feel obligated to send or respond messages when not working. Just, okay, I get the whole idea of that. I hear you when nobody is obliged, and that says that they may feel obliged. The next one is employees must also respect others and avoid direct communication, like sending emails, messages through their phone and communication and other apps. I mean, if that applies directly to us as well, so I cannot send an email now from Friday until Monday.
I
Can't send a text, I can make a phone call.
So through the chair, I don't see where that says that. I get, in all fairness, I'm struggling a lot with that.
What part?
Well, so 10A, the township may on occasion send general communication to employees when they are not working, or will do their best to ensure they are not sending communications that require immediate response to employees. Employees are not expected to respond to any company communication at work, except for unforeseen circumstances such as an emergency. So all that's saying is you send an email on Saturday morning at 9, that you don't have an expectation that I'm going to respond Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
Well, I think the first sentence also says employees may feel obligated to send or respond to messages when not working.
Correct.
So by that's inferring that if I set not to send one, because if I do, they may feel obligated to send or respond.
So through the chair, the entire purpose of that policy is to make it clear to the employees that there is no obligation to do it, so that they feel more comfortable by not having to check their emails. But if they so choose to do so and respond, they do.
Could I,
Yes, so I think.
could I just see if anyone else has any questions while you're pondering the response? Councillor Hunter, did you want it?
I don't really have a question. I read over this policy. I really don't have a problem with any of it. I know the deputy mayor runs a business. I've run a business all my life too. This is my 5th term on council. I don't think I've ever made a phone call or an email to an employee during the days off. I use my package and I wait until Monday and find out, send them an email, drop in if I have time to do it. I think that's part of the job you take if you get elected as a representative on council. You make the time to do the job. Employees are paid to work their hours. And they deserve not to be bothered when they're off on holidays and one thing or another. And this has been a problem over some years that I've been on council with certain ones on council calling employees and CEOs and when they're on holidays and when they're off. I don't think it's necessary unless it's an emergency. If I was sending a text or something to them, as our CEO said, you can send a text if you want, but don't expect somebody's gonna get back to you on it until they're working, unless it's an emergency. I just, these cell phones, in my opinion, have got to be one of the worst mental health things that ever happened to employees and employers, because nobody's working a 24 or 48-hour work week or 60-hour work week. It's a 24/7 work week because they got the phone hooked on them all the time. Everybody uses it. I'm not saying how many of us abuse it or don't abuse it, but it's abused across the country. And that's why we're getting into mental health problems and why we're losing staff that are leaving high profile jobs, because they don't have no time to themselves. They're hooked to that phone and think they gotta be hooked to it. We're way behind in the world. Europe has had this policy for years. Germany especially. You call an employee after their work hours, you could be fined. And it's not a small fine. And the higher up in the corporation you are, the higher the fine is if you call. People's got to have their time off. But I'm a firm believer in this policy. The only thing I don't like about it, the government brought down, they put this policy forward, and there's absolutely no teeth for any employer to enforce it. They write up, all they're required to do is write up a policy. And there's no repercussions. We can write up the policy all they want there, and there's no repercussions. You abuse it, go ahead and call, there's no repercussions for it. Some of the big corporations, I know that are dealing with it in the township or writing it up, and then management says, yeah, there'll be a policy there, but it's going to sit in the shelf because there's no enforcement from government to make them enforce it, and they'll get complaints about doing it, and then government put their hands up, well, there's no really teeth in it to do anything. You can't find them, you can't do nothing, you just call them up, slap the wrist, say, well, you wrote this policy, you should be abiding by it. But I'm a firm believer. I think if we keep staff and keep people healthy and mental health, you can't think that they're on call 24/7.
Mr. Packwood, you wanted in?
Yes, through the chair. Councilor Hunter stated it really well. And I've seen it being as a problem in other places the same way. And you can't expect people to be at your beck and call after working hours. It's just not right.
Mr. Bush, do you have anything to add?
No.
Thank you. I'll come back to you, Deputy
Yeah,
Mayor.
so mine is, and just for clarity, it's not that I'm expecting anybody to be at the beck and call. I don't want to send an email at 11 o'clock on Friday night when I've sat down and read my package. I'm not expecting a response. But I don't want it to become suddenly not okay for me to send it at 11 o'clock or Saturday night when I get the opportunity to read it. We don't get the package until Friday at 3:30. And I don't know about you, but people work on Mondays that may want to sit here. Not everybody has the ability to do that. So, and it certainly doesn't give a person a whole lot of free time to address things outside of the table that could be addressed, like disbursements or things like that, that we don't really want to waste hours in the meeting going over every disbursement sheet. So you send an email. Well, if I go through it and I find all those disbursements on a Saturday night and I want to know what those are so that I don't waste a whole bunch of time during a meeting, I want to be able to send that, right? Like it's ridiculous to think that you can't send that email. That's my point. I'm not asking for a response at 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. That's not what I'm saying. Shut your phone off. I don't really want I don't want a response until Monday. But to not be able to send it, that's crazy.
Why don't we just take it and put it on hold and then Monday morning send it?
Or a simpler way is just.
That's how the world works, John. Let's be real.
On the heading of your email, just put no response required until quite simple. And I did ask CAO Grant, whether this had anything to do with on-call or standby employees, which it doesn't, because they're on call, they're on call. So they would certainly respond. Anyway,
So we only get
any other questions or
business,
concerns?
Service business. Like,
Yeah, I know.
it's crazy.
Okay.
Sorry.
We do have a recommendation. And the recommendation reads that the committee recommends that council adopt the disconnect from the work policy as attached. Could I have a mover, please? I have Councillor Hunter. Do I have a seconder?
Mr. CEO, or sorry, do the chair, the CEO wants in.
I'm sorry, Mr. Grant, go ahead.
Maybe it would be good to give an example of the circumstance. So there was an email sent to me at 7 p.m. That was, or 6:30, whatever time it was. I didn't look at my email till 7:30 that night, but it was a manhole lid that wasn't put back on. To me, I'm okay with you sending the email, but that's a phone call.
Yeah.
Because that's like that's an emergency, like that is a life and safety item. That's all I'm saying. If it's an urgent matter that needs to be responded to, call. And if you can't get a hold of me, then you start calling down to the managers in those circumstances. But with respect to the email at 6:30, that it may very well have been 6 a.m. by the time I checked my email again. And that would have been an extended period of time where there was an issue. So I don't think there is a large degree of concern with those a few emails in the evening, on the weekend, and those particular items. I think that really what this policy is trying to institute is that there is no obligation for those non-urgent, non-important matters to be responded to until the next business day. But if there is an emergency, sending an email isn't the right mechanism anyways. A phone call, so that there can be some immediate response is really the appropriate mechanism.
I believe, Mr. Grant, you're referring to my text message or my email that I sent you regarding the manhole cover.
Yes, but it's just
But that was
an example.
that was at 4:30 in the afternoon. That wasn't at 7:30.
I did not receive an email from you. I received the email from the mayor.
But I guess my follow-up question to that would be this way.
Sure.
That incident was also on Facebook throughout the community. And my real question would be, why would anybody leave a manhole unattended or without putting a safety cone or some device to warn people that the manhole cover is off? I guess that's really my question now.
So
Why would somebody leave a manhole wide open with no warning? And this was the one on the street.
So through the time, there was certainly lots of activities that was certainly not intentional in any manner, way, shape, or form. But I think that is once again, because as soon as I got the message, I went over myself, and it was not. There was no open lid. So I don't. But I don't know at that particular time if there were still workers around. But I'm not debating whether it was 4:30 p.m. or 4:35 p.m. or 4:15. It's still, if it appears to be a serious issue, all I'm saying is a phone call. That's all it is. I'm just trying to provide an example, not pinpoint anybody.
I think maybe another step in the right direction then would be for staff to supply council and committee members with emergency contact phone numbers.
You have my phone number.
Yeah, I got it on speed dial.
I don't think there's been a time where I haven't answered my phone
You answer mine all the time.
or responded within a reasonable time.
Actually, it's all on the internet too, on the website.
I really don't know why a rate payer, if they see an incident like that, text instead of picking up the phone, if it's during hours, call the office or call.
Some people, that's all they do is text, no phone.
I'll have to put you on speed dial. I do not have your
Phone number?
your phone number other than here at the office.
I'll text you that.
It's okay. I can do that.
And I think I'll go back and just in reading item 10C again with raising my concerns. I think if I interpret C a little differently than I originally interpreted it, it probably covers a lot of what I was concerned about. I assumed that was more a departmental or a mass email. I think if I interpret that as just me sending you something, then I think it probably covers it, and I guess I'm okay with more or less with what's there. So it just requires me to interpret it a little differently than I do.
Someone's gonna have to show me 7 a.m. too. When you send it.
Okay,
Let's move on.
I was in the process of looking for a seconder, and I believe I have a seconder with Councillor Dillabaugh. So I have a mover with Councillor Hunter and a seconder with Councillor Dillabaugh. And the recommendation reads that committee recommends that council adopt the disconnect from work policy as attached. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Thank you. So we will now move on to 7G, which is the 2022 summer program update. And I do believe that Mr. Spencer would like to highlight this, and he's also, I see, has given us brochures outlining the program. So, Mr. Spencer, if you would highlight your briefing note, please.
Perfect, thank you, Mr. Chair. So that brochure is something that is going into all the kids from South End tomorrow that will be attending the pool at Johnstown for a 2-day fun day activity where they get a quick swimming lesson, which is part of the school board's policy as well as the healthiness policy. So just getting back to the update, so needless to say, parents are excited about getting their kids into programs this year, and it certainly shows by the numbers that we have, whether it be the day camp or the swimming, our numbers are extremely high. So that is a positive thing going forward. The Johnstown pool opened successfully with the health unit last Thursday, and the Cardinal one will be inspected on this Thursday, and I'm not anticipating any issues there as well. What's new this summer? We are again teaching. Last year we brought in an instructor in to teach the life-saving instructors course, and the swim instructor course. This year we're able to do that in-house, but we're also we've advertised, and that is being taught to people that are not necessarily from our township. We actually have one that's from Quebec and 2 or 3 that are in from Ottawa. So those courses are full and they're meeting. They started running yesterday and will continue for the next 2 weeks before the pool's open. So not only are we helping ourselves, but we're also helping neighboring municipalities who are having a tough time getting their lifeguards certified. New programming. The township is offering new evening and weekend lessons. And again, those numbers are very high. The registrations for both Johnstown and Cardinal. There's 30 kids per night, which is extremely, we ran it in the summer at 218 the evening lessons, and I think the highest one was 19 kids registered. So we had far exceeded those numbers. Aquafit Lane Swim, we're doing something new again this year. This is based on some of the feedback from the I'd say adults, but typically it's the adults that take the Aquafit classes. They asked to have a variety of different nights available and some during the day and weekends. So we've opened up that and given them a variety of different dates, nights at either pool. Again, and there's no cost for that. Staffing between the two pools and the day camp, we are running, it says 21, we're running actually 23 right now, between lifeguards and camp counselors. The day camp in Cardinal will run just during the month of July. The one in Cardinal, or sorry, in Johnstown, will run for the entire 2 months. Swim team, there will be a swim team. The Johnstown Bear Paws will be run by Sarah this year. Katie Garswood, he's a member of the Rec Association and also helped us out last year with some guarding. Will oversee the operations of that. And the Cardinal Sea Shark one will be facilitated by our own summer staff. Both teams have meets booked. The Cardinal one will be July the 16th. And the Johnstown one will be August the 22nd, or the 21st. As I indicated, the day camp registration extremely high. We have over 250 kids registered for the sessions. Summer staff training, we've had one staff training session already, and we will be completing another one on the 24th of June. Also, something that we brought back this year is the Board of Western day trips. We have 2 trips that are scheduled. One is to Mont Cascade. That is all, but I think there's 3 spots left on that, so that's filled up really quick. The Calypso, which is $10 more, but it is a bigger water park. We still do have, I think we have 10 openings left on that. So between now and when those dates for those trips are, I'm sure we'll sell out those as well, which is good. Just an update on the pickleball. It continues Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. Numbers have not been promising as we continue only average 10 to 15 per week, not per night, but per week. Parks Department just indicating that our 2 summer students are working alongside our full-time operators, keeping our grounds and facilities cleaned up and ready to go. Waterfront Canteen opened on June the 10th and will continue to operate at its hours that it did last year through till Labor Day weekend.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spencer. This is just an information item. There is no recommendation here, so I'll open the floor up to questions, and I'll start with Mr. Bush.
No questions, but looks like the summer is panning out really well. So good job with the organization.
Thank you.
Mr. Packwood.
No question, but I think that's excellent to get people going again at outdoor activities. That's wonderful. Good job.
Councillor Hunter.
So, you have a full slate of guards hired for man all the food programs and stuff?
Through the chair to Councilor Hunter. Yes, we do. We have 17 lifeguards that are hired right now. Typically, we have 10, but 17 that we have are not all working full slate. Some of them have secondary jobs and only want to work 10, 15, 20 hours in a week. So it's been a hodgepodge of getting it, but we will fill out all the spots. They're hard to come by. Yeah, so we're lucky that we have what we have right now.
So, supplement that we paid for training this summer last year. Did we get them back to work again this year for us?
Through the chair to Councilor Hunter, I believe all but 2 have come back. And the 2 that haven't come back are not lifeguarding somewhere else. They just chose not to partake in the lifeguard field this summer.
It proved out to be a very successful.
It did. Yes, it did. And it'll prove well that we're doing the instructing courses again this year and the standard first aid certification. That's something that our in-house training now we'll be able to offer throughout the season too, so that we're gonna be, you'll see some classes in October, and we're gonna do one in early January and February as well. And it's in-house staff that is able to teach that certification program now.
So we're not charging anything for that,
We are charging for the public to take it, absolutely.
not anybody working for us.
No, if we had to recertify one of our staff or something, that this is where, that we'll have that.
So that's time and money.
That's correct. Providing that's the Life Saving Society's first aid, because there is the Red Cross, and then there is the first aid of the Life Saving Society. There are two separate.
Deputy Mayor, do you have any questions?
No, well, yeah, a couple,
Comments?
a couple of questions, but just echo the comments of both Mr. Bush and Mr. Packwood about, you know, a fulsome program. Looks like it's gonna be fantastic, and it's gonna be great to finally see all the, you know, the pools full, everything full with the kids again. It's gonna be great to have everybody out there. Now, about something that's not full, which is pickleball. Same, so through the chair to Mike, it says averaging between 10 and 15 people. Are they the same people? Are they different people?
Through the chair, primarily it's the same ones.
Same ones. Will we, so this, I don't remember the end date for, or if we had an end date for pickleball at Spencerville. Are we planning on advertising it again a little bit more so we can share through our own contacts and our own social?
We have, we continue to advertise through the social media. The plan would be to run this up through till the Saturday of Liberty Weekend.
Saturday.
Actually, no, it would be the Thursday before Liberty Weekend, because the Saturday, the Spencerville Fair organization will want to get in the ring to start prepping for the following weekend for the fair. So it would be the Thursday night prior to the long weekend.
My only comment would be that the numbers are a little bit disheartening, but like anything, I don't think it happens overnight. I think we just have to keep figuring out. It's the fastest growing sport in North America. We're going to redo our courts in Johnstown, and hopefully we'll fix the ones up in Cardinal as well. We got to find a way to get the folks out, make sure that they know that it's available to them, and just keep pushing to get this done. Good work, Mike.
Through the chair.
That's it for me.
There's one thing I did forget to mention, the donations from the Greenfield ethanol and ingredient for the free swimming lessons. Those two donations that came in, so we will be able to offer 200 free swimming lessons between the two pools. And we have a check presentation, I believe, this Monday with both of those companies. Make this presentation. So again, a very worthwhile donation that will, it saves one child.
Absolutely.
That it's done its job.
Yeah, fantastic. Good, thank you. Councilor Gillibo?
Thank you. I'm just echoing everyone else, 250 people are children that coming out their camp. I think that's just great. Things are back in the swing. I give you credit to Mr. Spencer and your staff for organizing this. I do have a couple of things though, as you know, for pickleball. 10 to 15 and have not been promising. What's your promise? Like, what's your goal, Mr. Spencer? It hasn't been promising, so what do you think should be there in 10 to 15 per week? Do the chair to Mr. Spencer.
Through the chair to Councilor Gillibo. So the second week that we started, we had numbers between 18 and 24 each night. That would be, that to me, between 18 and 25 on any given night would be nice.
Sure.
There are 3 courts there, and with those numbers, we're not even close to hitting those numbers right now.
Right. Do the chair to Mr. Spencer. So what do you think, why do you think it's down from 18 per week to 10 to 15, or 18 per night to 10 to 15 per week? Do you have any?
Through the chair to Councilor Gillibo, I don't have a concrete answer. I do know the numbers are down a little bit in Prescott as well. Again, it's a new venture and we're gonna run with it for the whole year, right?
Right.
Like, as far as the court setup and the cleanliness of the arena, the lighting of the arena, you're not gonna get any better.
100%. I heard that from the people who are playing it.
Yeah.
So cool, so clean,
Yeah.
everything. Duly chair to Mr. Spencer, maybe I could help you. Tuesdays and Thursday, the second or third week we started it, North Granville started on the same day. So are we taking from maybe Totem Ranch and Yoakum? I don't know.
Through the chair of the council. The reason we went with Tuesdays and Thursdays is because Prescott goes Monday, Wednesday.
Well, I realize that, but I'm just saying North Granville started Tuesday, Thursday. Are they robbing some of our players? I don't know. I'm not worried. I think actually 10 to 15 to me a week. I think it's good. When you only need 2 per team. I mean, that's my feelings. And you got a lot of people rather play outdoors. I got a lot of people from Cardinal who, first of all, didn't want to pay the price of gas to come to Spencerville. And 2, they're using as much as they can, their Cardinals put the tape around it. So, I mean, I think it's there. So thank you for that.
Just one.
You want
one-
back in? Go
Just,
ahead.
well, just one question. Did we do a sign-in sheet with it? So
No,
like,
we do.
we
We
did
just,
not.
we keep count of the people that are coming, but we don't keep count of their names.
Would it be possible to do that in a,
Oh, sorry.
in a, like, if committee wants to? I'm just thinking that if there was a sign-in sheet with names and phone numbers that, for us to, talk to those folks to find out, why they came and why they're not coming, or why they stopped coming, or what exactly it was, so that we understand and we can, make some suggestions to try to
Start that
address that.
morning, if that's the.
I don't know if it'll work or not, but I just hate to see it fail.
Like that $2.20 gas, like there's a lot of it.
Well, that's what I heard from the Cardinal people. I'm not saying that's a big part, but I know 5 people have told me that. So whatever. I mean, good. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, anything
Good
else?
job, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. That report is excellent. And that was an information item, so we're going to move on now to 7H, which is the Trans Northern Pipeline Maintenance Notice. And this is an information item as well, and it's regarding repairs that will be upcoming through our township areas. And Mr. Shaw, are you going to highlight the briefing note?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So the staff have received notification from Trans Northern Pipeline in regard to their maintenance program and integrity dig. They'll be going along various locations in Jordan, Rudy in the third quarter, and I believe Fraser and Shanley on the 4th quarter of the year. It's basically undertaken on private property, and the residents have all been notified and sent letters in regard. Trans Northern has changed their to a new land overlaying zone from Coney Wright to Paul Thursville. And they ask that if there's any questions or inquiries about what's going on or concerns, that they contact Paul and a brochure out with the information on it. It's also been attached to the township website, a copy of the brochure.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I just have one question myself. In the past, Trans Northern has notified us ahead of time as to when the exact dig is going to be. Do you know if they're going to be doing that again?
Mr. Chair, they had some difficulty in the correspondence with them determining that exactly. I believe they are going in on the 21st. They have got the road access permits for the 2 in the 3rd quarter. So for Ruby and for Jordan Road, the road access permits have been filed and fees have been paid for.
Okay, it's the reason I'm asking is if anybody has not seen an integrity dig, if possible, you should try and see one because they are extremely interesting. Now, the situation here is that they're on private land. That may prevent Transnorthern from inviting outsiders onto private property. So, but anyway, if there is a chance for anyone to see one, I would recommend it. So I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh. If you have any questions or concerns.
None by me, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just 1 or 2. It says Q4, I think, right? For some of it, it goes across snowmobile trail. Go ahead.
I believe you're correct. It may encompass part of the trails themselves. But it typically it's the pipeline runs parallel to the 401.
Yep.
And they do have access roads off.
So, yeah, so if they're blocked off, the folks that will be using, I think it's just snowmobiles. I don't think that snowmobiles are allowed to use those, or wait, ATVs are allowed to use those snowmobile trails, right? I don't think ATVs can use those, right? I'm just wondering that they'll still have access to get by the big locations.
I would think that they would have the work area blocked off because of the construction site. So I don't believe they would allow that type of access just because of the liability and the potential for somebody to get injured. They dig up the pipeline basically and then have trenches along the sides of it.
Right.
So they can get in.
Councillor Hunter,
No question.
Mr. Packwood, and Mr. Bush. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I have no other questions. So thank you, Mr. Shaw, for that. And we will now move on to 7I, and that is the Frederick Street Rail Crossing, which is a closure and partial closure. And Mr. Shaw, would you like to highlight that for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the township's been notified by Canadian National Railway Company that it has identified Frederick Street at level crossings as requiring rehabilitation and some repairs. So they've informed us that for the dates of set for June 21st through June 23rd inclusive, they plan to have limited access through the daytime. Basically, there'll be full access to it's mostly affecting 2 properties to the north of the tracks. There'll be full access, but in the evening from 9 to 2 p.m. There won't be readily access because they'll have to take one set of tracks on the surface. So to complete the repairs, they're going to have a crew stand by so that if there's any emergency services required to get across, they can quickly make sure they can get across and do what they need to on the other side. Staff sent a letter on April 4th to the 2 affected property owners with the details provided by CNR, and reminder letters was sent May 24th. On June 6th, the rest of the residents, just to keep them afoot of what's going on there so they're not concerned, were sent a letter also. An email was sent to all the EMS services last Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh. Any questions for Mr. Shaw?
No, sounds like Mr. Shaw's got his I's dotted, T's crossed. Thank you very much.
Good. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hunter,
No question.
Mr.
No
Packwood,
questions.
Mr. Bush, and I have none. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And we will now move on to 7J, which is the South Cell Lagoon Ville bypass event. And again, it's an information item, pages 75 to 77. So the briefing note is in front of you. And again, Mr. Shaw, would you apprise us of any highlights you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So following the 2022 annual discharge, Environmental Services encountered some difficulty in seating one of the valves for the south cell, lagoon cell. They worked at it and finally got it to seat and went out to get some quotations to have the valve replaced. They're fairly large valves. So they got quotes from 5 different companies, or sorry, they asked for quotes from 5 different companies. When one of the companies had come out to have a look at it and come up with their quotation, they Yes, staff noticed that it was leaking by. Expect something to do with the head pressure, probably got up, was able to see it with low head pressure, and once the lagoon started to rise, it started to leak. So they immediately notified all the MECP, health unit, the township downstream, and the health unit. They put into effect some contingency plan to seal it up. They estimated about 6,500 liters, 6.5 cubic meters of partially treated sewage spilled into the South Nation River. They collected samples upstream, downstream, and from the cell itself to make comparisons as they would in a normal discharge. And they followed up with the MECP and health unit. They fabricated a temporary wooden plate support system, covered the pipe work, and stopped the leak on the 24th. On the 25th, they popped down the valve chamber and did a confined space entry and made repairs to entered shims and so forth in the frame of the valve to permanently seal it up until they could be looked at again next year. So yes, they have some estimates, and there was no further follow-up required from MECP or the health unit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shaw, for that. Again, it's an information item, so I'll start with Mr. Bush. Do you have any questions? Mr. Patrick
No questions at this time.
and Councillor Hunter,
No, I think we've handled this.
Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Dillabaugh. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Shaw. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Cardinal Sewer Force Main break, which happened just a little while ago, and there is this is an information item, no recommendation at this time. So, Mr. Shaw, again, could I call on you to highlight your briefing note?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So on June 7th, there was a force main break at the end of Walter Street, next to 304 Walter Street. Staff were notified by the resident of the pressurized leak. Staff started the contingency plan for sewer main break, force main, and started to address the situation. 10:15, staff contacted Green for Life, GFL, which is the old Terra Pure or Third Eye Farms, to get a tanker in to start shoveling. At 11:30, they started pumping from Adelaide Station wet well to fill the tanker and bypass the guns so we could shut the pumps down. The ORO contacted the authorities, again, the health unit and the downstream, which would be Morrisburg in this case, water treatment plant, and the health unit. Staff worked at it and dug down approximately 8 feet to the force main and discovered there was a horizontal break the length of the pipe. You can see in the pictures there, well, you can see very clearly, but if you can expand the picture, you'll see that there's a crack along the length of the pipe. They estimate that approximately, sorry, so they had to call back and keep Spills Action Center abreast of what they were doing and where they sat at that. They finished up about 5 o'clock, 5:30, and had the pipe repaired, tested it, and then began to fill it in.
Yes, and the pictures are quite clear. Good pictures on that. Okay, once again, this is an information item. Any questions or concerns from Mr. Shaw regarding this? It's back up and running and well.
Yes, it is.
Hearing none, thank you. We'll, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor.
That's okay. I just, Mr. Shaw, kudos to our chief water sewer operator and the staff for giving us a dialogue from what's going on from 10:05 to closing. I was a little concerned when I heard it. The CEO said an email right away, which is great to see. So great job. The way that you people handling went hour by hour. So thank you very much for passing that on to the staff. Thank you.
Yeah, so just excuse my ignorance, but what is an ORO?
Overall responsible operator.
Perfect, good, excellent job on it. I just didn't have a clue what ORO was. So thanks.
Councillor Hunter?
An excellent job getting to it. Just through your operation manager, looking at this pipe, it looks like one of the newer poly pipes. Was it a faulty pipe that made it crack, or what made it crack that way?
Through the chair, to Councilor Hunter, we're unsure what made it crack other than possibly age. It's unusual to see that pipe. I've seen once before a similar one, but it was in a water line. And that pipe is actually a DR26 pressure pipe, which is a special sewer pipe that can take 160 PSI. So it's a fairly high pressure pipe. Unsure of, after years and years of in that same spot being fairly deep as well, the only explanation could be even the wear and tear on it. Sand and so forth gets down into those wells, like through the little drain, the little holes in the manhole covers and so forth, and some infiltration stuff. It could be that sand scouring and weakened it somewhat, or it's a small rise in the pipe. The pipe changes elevation quite significantly. I can't tell you off the top of my head what it was, but from Adelaide pump station, it's a kilometer run out to where it discharges into the gravity system to go to the wastewater plant. So that's about all we could come up with. Very bad place, and the environmental service handled it very quickly, considering where it was and where in depth and
I think you did an excellent job. I just wondered, but it occurred to me looking at it, looks like the same type of pressure pipe that we installed in Spencerville when it was out through. So I just wondered what is the age of that pipe that was in there? You know,
that'd be 1989
so it's roughly about pretty much the same age as what the Spencerville pipes are.
or 2010. 91 somewhere.
Really, no way,
Very similar age.
really no way of tracking each other, right?
Forest main, sorry, through the chair. Forest main, it runs, and depending on the season, like it could be running every 5 minutes. So you really can't, unless you had a duplicate line to switch over. There's no way of checking the integrity on it.
I used to see one break like that. So to break it half or something, break like those. Like that.
Surprise.
This. Okay, and I have no questions, Mr. Shaw, but thank you for the solid report. And that brings us now to 7L, which is the HFI pyrotechnics safety concerns. And as you recall, a few weeks ago, there was a meeting here, delegation from Hands regarding some road work and signage. And this is showing us that we are putting up some stop signs and warnings. And there is a recommendation with this. And I do not have who would highlight this for me. Mr. Shaw, would that be you? That'd be fine then.
Mr. Chair. So May 9th, the committee of the whole, HFI Pyrotechnics was a delegation at that committee. They brought concerns about ATV traffic along the Hands Road, and we're looking for assistance to mitigate traffic concerns. They were looking originally to road closure, but after discussion at the committee meeting and some talk privately with some of the citizens who were landowners, they felt that probably wasn't a viable solution or well supported. So basically, township staff followed up with them on June 14th to look at the situation firsthand and to discuss perhaps some way better to mitigate the speed issues there and increase safety for pedestrians and through traffic. We came up with two options: reduce the speed limit on Hands Road. This option was actually discussed somewhat at the council meeting or committee meeting. reduce the limit on Hands Road to 40 kilometers an hour, install proper signage, install pedestrian crossing signs, create a pedestrian crossing by delineating the area with paved hash marks on the road surface, and installing speed bumps. The second option was to install stop signs on the east and west approaches to the intersection of Main HFI facility, and install new stop ahead sign advancing oncoming traffic, and a pedestrian crossing from the north to south HFI facilities across the surface of Haynes Road. Financial considerations for option one is estimated at about $1,400 plus HST. That's for the traffic speed reduction signs and bumps and crossing. Option two was estimated for just stop signs, stop ahead, warning signs, and painting and pedestrian crossing, approximately $230 plus HST. I kind of discussed this a bit, and this opinion of staff anyways is probably the more viable option. It makes it regulated at that point, and then some of the traffic laws come into effect where if you have a crosswalk, you have to stop before the crosswalk at a stop sign. It will moderate the speed through that section, and plus make safety for through traffic and for pedestrians much better. HFI allowed that they've had some issues with some speeding and of their own contractors and so forth, and they're starting to deal with that. They've also said that they've talked to the ATV club in regard to it, and things have got much better because they had some conversations with them and kind of went over their problems and made some awareness around that. So recommendation is that the committee recommends that council accept option two, direct staff to install required stop signs and painted crosswalk at the cost of approximately $230 plus HST, and bill HFI for 50% of the costs.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. That means I don't have to read the recommendation. Thank you. So before I ask for a mover and a seconder, let's get the questions and concerns out of the way. And I'll start with Councillor Dillabaugh, if you have any.
Thank you. I have many.
Carry
This.
on.
Through the chair. First of all, through the chair to Mr. Shaw, on June 14th, your meeting, is that what you went over? You came up with the conclusion of option one and option two? Or
Well,
was
we
there more?
discussed them.
Sorry?
Through the chair, we discussed the two different options because they thought that the road closure wasn't on the table anymore. Just from the response they received from council that wasn't fully supported, and from speaking with some of the residents that own properties further down.
And through the chair, I was down there. I was really concerned because there's a speed limit there sign of 15 kilometers an hour. And I was getting calls from the ATV people. When did we reduce it? And I said, we haven't. So where did the 15 kilometer sign come and who put it up?
Through the chair, those were erected by HFI. I mentioned that it probably wouldn't be favorable for council to have that done. But they said that that was done in reaction basically because they were getting people speeding through the intersection and to their facilities, and the 15 kilometers per hour is the speed limit that their roads on the facility are.
People were going like through it.
Skidding, so the trucks, like the delivery trucks,
Delivery trucks, skidding.
delivery trucks that turn into their facilities,
Yeah.
skidding through that corner.
Oh, okay. Because to the chair, to Mr. Shaw, the other day I was down there and I was coming eastbound. I went down east, turned around the railroad bed, coming back westbound. Two employees, one a female, another one a male. The female stopped at the crossing when I was coming up and waited for me. The male turned left out of the main building with a wagon himself, never looked or nothing, and went down the road in front of me. So, maybe we should pass it on. They have to do their due diligence too and be careful and look both ways. Another thing I noticed is on the southeast side, on the shipping and receiving, they got to clean that brush up. That is terrible. You can't see anything. And if you had that cleaned up, you could see a transport coming out of there. I didn't even see there was a transport out there until I was right at that 15-kilometer sign. So I think when I was going east, so I think they have to clean that all up. I do have I'd like to make a motion. Hey, after everyone's done.
I'll come back to you then.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I
Deputy
may,
Mayor?
just one, I think for now, when we put in a new stop sign, what's the process for creating a new stop sign? Like, is there a bylaw that has to go in effect or something like that to make it an actual legal stop sign?
Through the chair, I would believe it would have to be a bylaw passed by council. And the actual installation to put a stop sign ahead and the road allowance would probably need some cleaning up just to make sure you have good sight lines. So you have it, because it's new and people will go through if they don't know what's coming and so forth. So that was kind of the idea, was to have at both ends of the intersection, stop signs facing the other way, with on the east end, the hash marked sidewalk. So that gives a little bit more distance to the corner from the traffic that's coming down Hands Road. And that way it's regulatory, and because the regulations say that if there's a sidewalk there, you have to stop before the sidewalk if there's a stop sign.
Right.
So then it makes it more regulatory. It instead of reducing the speed on the whole road, which there's no, I don't believe there's any inhabitants, there's an old house there, but I think it's abandoned. People tend to just travel how they're comfortable anyways. So with the stop sign, the forewarning, and the fact that they're coming to full stop in that section, it seems like the safest and the cheapest and the least maintenance costs.
Just follow up. So then so approving this, then we at council, we would expect to see like a bylaw to go ahead with the stop sign. Like, is that something, like, I don't know the process of putting in a new stop sign. So
through the chair, the resolution that would come to council accepting this would be sufficient for us to proceed with the stop sign installation.
It will come back next week then for us. For the
The
27th.
resolution, yes, it would come back on the 27th.
Cool.
Councillor Hunter?
I hope this corrects it, but I don't know whether it seemed to be that when the presentation was made, the biggest concern was with the four-wheelers coming up and down, causing problems not only there but off the railway bit. Technically, the four-wheelers aren't even supposed to be on, so that's at least by the snowmobile trail. And from what I hear from some of the snowmobilers, the four-wheelers have the railway bit pretty near ruined with ruts and holes in it. There's going to pretty near need a grader on it to level it to either that or 2 foot of snow before they'll be able to snowmobile on it again. So hope it correct it, but I don't know. I really don't know why we're allowing four-wheelers to run up and down that road. There's really no requirement for them to be on that road. So
I think, did we not give permission to the club to use that road at one time?
Through the chair, I believe that that was one of the bylaws passed, that wasn't wrong, that could be used.
But that was only for the club.
Four-wheelers.
Because I've always said, I don't think it's the club that, the club members that are the problem. I think it's the guys that are not members of the club that are the problem. But anyway, Mr. Packwood?
Through the chair, the $230, does that cover any labor or anything to install the signs? Just the materials.
Mr. Bush?
Well, I agree with option 2 out of these two, because I mean, really, we're trying to help them out, but really it's their problem that they're having, right? Like ATVs on the road would be under the Highway Traffic Act. so that'd be OPV. So it isn't really our concern. So it's good we're reaching out and trying to work with them. At both ends.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Gilba, coming back to you, do you still want to make your motion or
Yeah,
go ahead?
I make a motion that we take option one to reduce the speed to 40 kilometers an hour, to install the speed bumps and to paint pedestrian walkways. And the HFI clears the trees on the southwest side and keep them cleared, and the township pays 100% to the public works operation budget.
Mr. or Councilor Gilba, I'm just looking at the southeast, southwest corners that you spoke about. And I have to ask staff whether or not, is that our property, is that township property? And do we have to do the tree clearing and the brush clearing there?
So through the chair, without being completely on site, I would anticipate that some of that is within in the township right of way, so.
Okay, so we have a Councilor Gilba has a mover,
Well, I moved it.
or has a movement. Motion, does he have a second? Councilor
Second, I agree with the part of they clear their trees, but I think it's up to us for the trees that are on our roadway. to clear them.
That's fine. I just want it done. I don't care if it's HFI or the township of Cardinal. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify that the motion on the table is that the township pay 100%.
That's right. Hopefully, it's the end of the beginning. I didn't like that one particular statement about, it's a starting point. I hope this is the finish point.
I guess I don't think we've ever put stop signs or paint sidewalks on any of our roads that we charge back. Private business for using our roadway.
Hey, they came for help. We went to the wall. I sure like the 15 kilometers out of there. I was not to see that.
Separate down the shoulder there.
Big time.
Can you read the motion again?
Okay, the motion, I'm going to let Councilor, he's replacing the recommendation with option one, which reads in its entirety, plus what do you want to add to that?
Well, with the trees being cleared, if it's part of our duties, that's fine. I don't mind. That's only thing from the HFI and the township for clearing those trees. Everything else the same as and that we're paying 100%. Signage, speed bumps, painting, and reducing the speed to 40 kilometers.
And the upset limit on that is $1,400. Am I correct, Mr. CAO?
Through the chair, that is the rough estimate. Yes, it is.
Okay.
However, I certainly would like to indicate that those speed bumps would only be through 3 seasons.
I'm sorry,
So the speed bumps would only be 3 seasons of the year.
Not the winter.
For winter.
No. make sure HFI is aware of that too.
So just so that I'm clear on this,
Yes,
when it says required signage, that's the stop signs? Is that-
Mr. Gilbo,
What, I'm sorry?
he wants to know if the
Well, I think
required,
it's just that.
required signage is the stop signs. Is that what you're referring to?
No. So
So it won't require everybody to stop.
So through the chair, if I'm understanding Councillor Dilaba, that there will be no stop signs placed there, that instead of stop signs, there will be pedestrian crossing and speed bumps with speed bump signs erected, with a reduction of speed on that road to 40 kilometers, which would have to be posted.
No, and 2 stop signs.
Yeah, I'm confused because option one does not include stop signs. We're doing stop signs, we're doing speed bumps, we're doing.
Well, whatever it is, we do speed bumps before the stop sign. That's what I'm hoping for. Speed bumps, slow them down, come to a complete stop. Go. That's my intention there.
Have to have a stop sign at a crosswalk.
No.
There would be a 4-way stop there too.
That's,
Chair, hands road, that's not,
don't get any stop
that's not a
signs.
municipal intersection. We can certainly ask HFI if they would install stop signs that where it meets Hands Road, but I guess I'm a little confused that we're gonna slow down with the speed bump so that they stop at a stop sign while they're required to stop at a stop sign.
Yes, and I'm sure it's like the truck the other day, transport there, it says a stop sign, didn't stop. It came out of shipping and receiving, glided through. So at least that slows us down. I don't have a problem. If you don't want to put it in, I just want as much safety as we can for those people. If it meets the speed bumps, you think, in the painted lines and the reduced speed of 40 kilometers, I'm fine with that. Or no speed bumps and the 2 stop signs, I'm fine with that. And reduce the speed to 40 kilometers. Whatever you as staff would think is the safest for those people. That we have done as much as we could.
I think where I'm stuck on this is that you made a motion
We've got to go with the motion.
and
One
I
motion or
think it
the
was
other.
seconded. I just don't know what the motion said. And it's, I just want to be clear on what I'm voting on. I'm okay with whatever the solution is. I think both of them will work, but I'm just not sure what that solution actually is or what required signage means. Like, to me, required signage, I'm guessing it's that there's a speed bump ahead, not that there's a stop sign ahead. But I'm not clear on what I'm voting on. That's all.
Okay, can I redo the motion then to help everyone?
Well, you can spell it out for us, yes?
Well, okay, then we'll go with the motion of the 2 stop signs, reducing the speed of 40 kilometers an hour, painting the crosswalk for the pedestrians for HFI, and we and HFI, whoever, will be responsible to clear the southwest side of the property. So everything but the speed bumps.
No speed bumps now.
With, I don't mean to be a pain, Councilor Dilba, I'm sorry, but I think that there's already a motion on the floor. And I just procedurally, we have to deal with the original motion that you put on the floor before we can bring a new one. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult,
Actually,
but
amend the motion.
He
it's
can't
different than
amend
the
motion,
first one, so.
So it's amended.
Can I amend it?
Through the chair, it could be amended. I think in essence, what Councilor Bilbao is looking for is that committee recommends that council proceed with both option 1 and 2 and direct that all 100% of the cost is absorbed by the township.
Absolutely.
1 and 2, 100%.
I think that's clear enough. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
That's what you were trying to say?
Is that okay, Mr.
Is
Dillon?
that what we're doing, then option 1 and 2? Amendment, I want it the safest, the easiest way for those people.
So I think through the chair, I believe through that discussion that was what was indicated.
I got a quick way out of this. We already have a motion on the floor, just call, vote on it, we'll vote it down and then make a new motion.
Through the chair, you can also withdraw the original motion.
Then I'll withdraw the motion.
But we have to vote on that first. No, just
He just withdrew it.
Okay. Guess they'll make
Okay, so Councilor Dillon,
We're back to another motion.
we're back to another motion.
Option 1. May I make a proposal that we go with option 1 and we pay 100% of the $1,400 HST?
Again, Councilor, I should say Deputy Mayor is going to ask, what is recommended signage referred to?
doesn't include stop signs.
It says here, option 1, reduce the speed limit on Pans Road 40 kilometers an hour, install signage, install pedestrian crossing signs. Create pedestrian crossing area with painted hash marks. That's what it says.
Do you expect stop signs?
No, doesn't say stop sign. Yes, it does say stop sign. Sorry,
No, it doesn't.
That's option 2.
sorry, install signage. Signage.
Our CEO suggested 1 and 2.
So through the chair. Option 1, if you proceed with option 1 alone, you would reduce the speed to 40 kilometers an hour. You would be installing speed bumps, and with that, you would be required to install signs identifying that there are speed bumps. Okay. You're installing a pedestrian crossing, so you would need to ensure that you have the appropriate signage indicating a pedestrian crossing. And you would make the crossing. That is option 1.
No stop signs. Thank you. Just signage. Good. Thank you.
Are you happy with option 1, Councilor?
I am happy with option 1 that we pay 100%.
Okay, so your new motion then is for option 1.
Yeah.
Do you have a seconder for option 1,
Still got
Councilor?
my second.
Councilor Hunter, we have it. All right, I'm going to call the question. The recommendation is for option 1. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'll go for it. It's carried. Option 1 is carried. Opposed? 2 opposed. Thank you. Thank you all. That is it for the action information items. We're now at number 8, which is council of inquiries and notices of motion. I do believe CAO Grant wants in here, so Mr. Grant, do you mind if I go around the table first?
But certainly by all means, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, at the table, any council inquiries or notices of motion?
Excuse me, inquiry for you for our operations manager. One, down Ben's Mill Road today, just after the Hands fireworks coming north, and there's a tree bent right over the road there that's hitting the top of trucks as they go on the northbound lane. Yesterday been over a little bit, but today I come back through and they're actually down low enough to hit the top of my truck coming underneath it, so. Second inquiry was, I wonder, are grass mowing along the roads, have we started that, or how are we proceeding with it? People inquires about how come we haven't roads haven't been mowed, so.
Through the chair, they have started. They've also picked up the Magoo. The contractor is done and closes business there. As opposed to going out and contracting out, they've also done that. So it's done at Magoo, it's done at the landfill site, Scott Road, and he has started on the roads. He'll be on the ground and inquire himself.
Is that it? And Councilor Billabong?
we're missing somebody tonight, through the chair. Is everything okay?
Yes, Mayor Sale is attending a graduation of one of his, I believe, granddaughters is graduating and he's in London, Ontario. But he will be back for the board meeting on Wednesday. Now, CAO grant, I know you have something to bring forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff was contacted today from the representative from the Optimist Club. They're looking to do their annual soapbox derby that had been sort of on hiatus for a couple years. They're looking at doing the soapbox derby run this Saturday, roughly between 8:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Gooden Road, which would require a road closure of Gooden Road between Cleary and 44. Don't need that entire section, but reasonable identification. Typically, that would come through committee and then go to council. Unfortunately, with probably 6 days before it's happening, just like to get some sense of councils on board with having that road closed on Saturday and providing barricades to the Optimist Club to put up from taking out during that event.
Thank you, Mr. CIO. And now this is something that we have done in the past for many years, I do believe, through the Optimist Club. So nothing, I'm assuming here that nothing is going to change from prior years. The road would still be controlled for emergency traffic if needed and whatnot.
Through the chair, yes, there would be access for emergency services, but we would also notify them of that closure during that time, and if they can route another way that they
Certainly. Okay, Deputy Mayor Deschamps, I know you wanted.
Yeah, what were the hours for?
I believe the event's 9 to 12:30, so we were kind of looking at around that 8:30 maybe to 1 p.m. time frame where it would be closed.
So if I could make a motion.
Do we need a motion?
I think we need one.
Just before you make your motion, please.
Yes.
Have we done the whole road before? Just curiosity from Clary to 44. I didn't think I've been out there like the first year. I can't remember. But...
So through the chair, we typically don't have that closed right at 44, but it certainly needs to be closed at an area on Good Road that traffic that's not aware that the road's closed has an opportunity to turn around. Typically, we typically try to put it right by.
Will be like a sign, local traffic only or something like that with the barricade.
Other years, we generally just had the road blocked at the fair gate.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Turn the fair gate.
Okay.
Blocked up a Clary Road.
Yeah.
Around everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you, go ahead.
Okay, any other comments or questions? from the table?
Comment, I spoke to some of the Optimist Club today, they have visited all the residents on the road and talked to them, and they were all fine with it. They had no problem with it, so.
And there's a barbecue.
So, Deputy
So
Mayor, you want to make the
I'll-
motion?
Yes, I'll move to close Gooden Road from Cleary to Highway 44 on Saturday, June 25th, from 8 AM until the end of the soapbox.
I'll second that.
I have a mover, I have a seconder. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Okay, no other inquiries or notices, thank you. The mayor is not here tonight for his report. So I will go directly to question period, and I'm seeing no remote repairs, and I see no one in the gallery. So we'll carry on to our number 11, which is closed session, which we do have a closed session tonight. Now, I need some guidance from either the CAO or the clerk regarding our advisory members, whether they should stay for the closed session or not. I understand it is an identifiable individual.
So through the chair, typically when it comes to personal matters that identify as an individual, we have excused the citizen advisory members.
Thank you. So we will do that and the same tonight. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and we shall see you at the next meeting.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the committee proceed into closed session at 8:46 in order to address a matter pertaining to section 239 to be personal matters about an identified individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically larger board of appointment.
Okay. And all in favor? Very good. I'm going to ask for just a quick 5-minute break if everybody's comfortable with that.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the closed meeting of committee does now adjourn and open meeting does now resume at 9 p.m.
There we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And okay, that's fine. That was carried. Okay. So as chair, I will report out of closed session, and we in closed session was a discussion about a personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal board, local board employees, specific to the library board in our township.
I have a motion for adjournment here.
And I'm looking for the adjournment.
Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter. The committee does now adjourn at 9:02 p.m.
All in favor?
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you.
Let's go.